Welcome to the podcast today. I have to give a special shout out today to Connor, who is calling in from Nepal at who knows what hour in the night. Just before we hopped on this call, his power went out for like a minute or two. So this is we got to give him some serious props for still making it at the regular scheduled recording time. Connor is an absolute legend. Okay, today we're talking about some big AI news out of Google. Their new Gemma model has just launched, Gemma 3, and this is a condensed, this is their fast, this is their lightweight model. It's essentially designed to be able to run on a single GPU or TPU. This is really impressive. Connor, from the other side of the world, what is going on with AI?
Yeah, so welcome. Welcome from the other side of the world. If I cut out, apologies. Maybe we'll have to redo this, Jaeden, but thanks for being patient. Yeah, listen, Gemma 3 is huge. I mean, people are sort of freaking out about Gemma 3. I think mostly just because, Jaeden, doesn't it kind of feel like we're past the stage of what's ChatGPT's 4.5 going to look like? What's the new reasoning model? Those things haven't blown people out of the water. And I think what Google is doing may be better than anyone else. You tell me if you disagree, but they are figuring out how to just make these things more accessible and more affordable and everything else. And that is a key part to this, right? So just in terms of efficiency and performance, let me just give you sort of a few baseline measurements here. So it's talked about as being able to achieve this super high performance with just one, as you said, NVIDIA H100 GPU, which is a great GPU, obviously, but just understanding that other companies like this require tons of GPUs for these same kinds of tasks. But the other crazy thing is that usually on models this small, it doesn't support everything. This one does images, it does short videos, it has like all those multimodal capabilities. It also has like 140 languages, which is pretty cool. The context window is way bigger than I thought it would be, Jaeden. It's 128,000 tokens. Now, listen, that's not going to be the 2 million token or whatever that, Gemini tends to boast about or anything like that. But like 128,000 token is, you can think of as kind of like a part of a word, is still colossal for this. And it's also supposed to be safer, all that sort of stuff. But here's the thing that I'm excited about with this, which is that these are the sorts of things that can run on personal devices. I mean, if one of the huge things about, generative AI and large language models in general is just, data protection, everything else. And, how are we going to, and this is why open source models are so great and why, Llama 4.5b was getting so much press, why DeepSeek V3 was getting so much press, all that sort of stuff was because these are essentially open source or open weight or open source models, whatever you want to call them, but that could run on your own computer, and apparently Gemma 3 is outperforming all of these sort of dramatically, actually. And so to do all of this with way less hardware feels to me like, I don't know, Jaeden, like it feels like 2023, 2024, we're all about like, what's the next leap in what things can do? And I'm starting to wonder if 2025 is the year of like, we're watching what agents can do and things like that. But I feel like it's how small can these models get? How efficient can they get? How cheap can they get to use and still remain powerful so that you can run them on your phones? Now, that doesn't mean that all of us who aren't developers are going to start running this on our phones, but it is an amazing indication of what developers, and shout out to our guy Logan over at Gemma and now DeepMind for, sort of like the developer relations front. But that's what's cool to me. What's cool to me is that this is stuff that's not going to wow us. It's not going to be the new Sora. It's not going to be a robot, like peeling a grape or whatever. But it is going to have real consequences, and especially in businesses like yours, right?
100%. So, I mean, there's a couple just numbers here that were kind of mind blowing to me. The first thing is they've just crossed the 100 million downloads mark for Gemma.
Wow.
So it's cool. Obviously, it's been around for only a year, and obviously in 1 year, 100 million downloads. This thing is very, very used and loved. There's a lot of reasons why it's loved. One of the things you mentioned is the context window. So when developers are using this, they're putting it on devices or single GPUs or TPUs, like I mentioned, but they're able to run this very lightweight. Now, the thing that I think really is cool about Gemma 3, they didn't just come out with one specific size model. They actually came out with 4 different sizes. So they have 1 billion parameters, 4 billion parameters, 12 billion parameters, and 27 billion. This is really cool because a lot of times when you're developing something for a single use case, right? Like if you have ChatGPT, typically you just want it to be the best possible so that whatever you ask it, it knows how to do. But if I'm a developer and I'm specifically working with a language translation company and I want to make it like native on a specific device or piece of language translation hardware, a headset, something, I only need maybe a 4 billion parameter model, but like I have to ship it with the 27 billion. There's just extra bloat that's not needed, right? And so it's really cool that they have this ability to scale up or down depending on your needs. I think there's a lot of cool things that they're doing. And of course, yeah, like you mentioned, the over 100,000 token context window, really cool on this. Google has just been super generous with their context windows. It's one of their biggest like selling points, I think, when we're talking about, I believe, just their main Gemini model is over 1 million in and out, and that's just like astronomical. That's insane. No one else is doing that. So very, very cool to kind of see what they've been able to do there. And yeah, overall, I think that's awesome. You mentioned the benchmarks. If you're looking at the chatbot arena, the ELO score on this thing, it has 38 ELO score, which is quite impressive. It's only behind DeepSeek R1. Well, in the chart they mentioned, obviously they selectively didn't show the latest models from Anthropic and OpenAI, I've noticed, are missing here. But what they're comparing it to is O3 Mini. So that has a 1304, which, to be honest, isn't like... They show kind of a chart, which makes it look like a dramatic difference, but like the beginning of the chart is 1220 and the end of the chart is 1363. So like if they showed the entire chart, these would probably be kind of minuscule differences we're seeing here, but we're zooming in on the chart to see the full breadth of it. Definitely much better than Gemini 2, better than Mistral Large, better than Llama 3, the 405 billion parameter version, which, to be honest, I'm really hoping Meta and Llama come out with something impressive soon, because I feel like their model has fallen behind. I don't ever use Meta AI at this point. I've switched exclusively to Grok. It's beating everything on the benchmarks. And if something beats it, I'm happy to move. But at the moment, that's kind of what I use as a consumer. But for some of these smaller use cases, Gemma might be a really cool model, especially considering some of the drawbacks of DeepSeek as far as content and censorship and issues people might have with its origins. Other than the DeepSeek R1, Gemma 3 is kind of the next best thing.
Well, that's okay. So this raises the question too, Jaeden, because I'm always obsessed with how you are using language models and things like that. And again, I love that you're using Grok. I like literally showcase you out in the world as somebody who's using Grok. So with something like this, right? Like Gemma 3, we can see, we can test Grok, right? And I'm with you on Meta. I think Meta is just falling behind these days. It's just, they're having some issues internally that they're talking about. They're now talking about starting their own app, right? They're going to have a Meta app because I think that this idea that they were counting I don't know, however many users they were using because people were doing searches on Instagram and Facebook, like that was driving me a little crazy, because that's just not
in the normal search bar that you search for usernames. I'm like, come on,
man, I'm totally with you. So, but in this case, I'm just thinking, like, people want to kind of get excited about AI, and we do too. But with something like just a smaller model, again, I'm not sure how, Gemma 3 is powerful. And also Google can afford to just give this stuff away because it's Google, and because Google was running behind for a while and they really need people to sort of pay attention to it. I think what I focus on a lot is like the enterprise adoption of this. And the more Google gets in the press, the more companies take notice and may start looking at them over a Microsoft or something like that, right? That's who their big competition is. Gemini's big competition is Copilot. I don't know if there's kind of OpenAI too as well, but like just in terms of being embedded in enterprise. And so I think that this kind of Gemma 3 announcement is cool because enterprise will be able to sort of see the value in this as well. But I don't know that it's the same kind of, big a headline splashy kind of thing as like Grok gets its own app and Jaeden Schafer is using Grok, right?
Yeah, 100%. Overall, I think Google's making some big moves here. Obviously, this Gemma 3 isn't something that consumers are going to use in any way, like on its own standalone app or anything. But I think this is something that a lot of people are going to interact with that they don't even know about, because at the end of the day, this is getting embedded into so many software by developers. And Google, again, like you mentioned, they just have a bunch of really cool features that they can essentially use to lure developers in. The context windows, the scalable size of the model. It is pretty good. They are doing these updates. So yeah, overall, I'm excited to see what happens with Gemma 3. Like what kind of, they mentioned the benchmark at the beginning of like, okay, we have 100 million downloads on this. That doesn't necessarily mean how many people are using it, because a lot of these developers, when they hear that, honestly, I think probably the big thing was like the context window. When a lot of developers heard the context window, everyone that is developing anything tried Gemma to see if it would work for their use case. So I do, again, think it's an exciting and a huge number. Doesn't mean 100 million is like there's 100 million developers using this, but I bet there's a lot. Like I'm not trying to downplay it, but I do think their context window lured people, and that's fantastic. I hope they keep doing things like that. They keep finding whatever competitive advantage they have, which at this point, Google has a lot of money. So context windows or other things that are kind of expensive, I think they can open up and build the technical capabilities to scale and support that. And I think they get a lot of traction. So overall, very excited about this. I'm excited that Google's finding an angle. I love it when there's very competitive models, and every single one of these AI companies, it feels like, is trying to find their competitive edge. Google's got these context windows. Anthropic is really good with code. Okay, the last crazy anecdote, because we mentioned Grok earlier, that I have to give you. I was talking to my brother yesterday. He's not a developer. He's studying marketing. I studied marketing. He's at university right now. And I was talking to him yesterday, and he was like, yeah, so I spent the last week and I'm vibe coding a Google Chrome extension. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't know you're a coder. And he's told me over the last year, he's kind of played around with these Google Chrome extensions. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of figuring out, I pretty much just use AI to write the code and then watch a bunch of YouTube videos. And I'm like, did you ever want to study computer science? He's like, no, that would have been horrible. I would have hated it. I think marketing's good. I can figure out how to.
To code? This is
Are picking up. It is really good in the benchmarks, and it allegedly was good at code. But when I asked my developers who've been using Anthropic for the last 2 years, they're like, "No, Anthropic's the best. Nothing can ever beat it."
Guys,
so
this is the lesson. The lesson here. This is the lesson here, which is that it's not like one model is so much better than other models. You end up testing. I mean, when I teach one thing, I teach ChatGPT, even though I probably use Claude just because I do a lot of writing. I maybe use Claude more than I use anything else, just in terms of sheer bandwidth. But ChatGPT, I ask 50 questions a day of, and Claude, I spend 3 hours a day on, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? But again,
yep.
testing, because if you can find something in Grok or something like that, then use it. Guys, listen, we're going to continue this conversation in other podcasts. We're running out of time right now, but listen, if you have enjoyed this podcast, first of all, stay up with this news, man. It's really cool to see what Google's doing. I watched Google because Google I/O is coming up too, so keep an eye on them. But listen, thank you for tuning in. You know what you can do for us, folks. You can leave us a rating or review. We always appreciate it, and we will see you on the next AI Applied.